Welcome. Today we're going to cover the most efficient way to shoulder a sandbag, or that is to move a sandbag from the ground to the top of one of your shoulders. Before we do dive in, I want to remind you that I cover this movement, the sandbag to shoulder, in great detail, along with 12 to 15 other sandbag movements and principles in my sandbag strength instructional course. Whether you're just now learning how to move a sandbag around or you've been using sandbags for years, this course will help you improve starting on day one. I'll link it in the description below. Now, for the purpose of this video, we're gonna go ahead and assume that you are comfortable with picking and lapping a sandbag already. So we will not be covering those components here. Now, as you can see from the orientation of the sandbag that I have at my feet, I pick sandbags, what we would call horizontally, or with the long aspect of the bag running in this manner in front of me, as opposed to picking a sandbag vertically or having the long aspect of the bag running, say, between my legs. This is the way that I have found to be the most efficient and to prepare me from the pick to move into other movements with sandbags. Now, at the top of a sandbag to shoulder, it is a unilateral movement, kind of, because you have to pick a shoulder to go to, and you can't put the sandbag on both shoulders at the same time, so therefore you either go to the right or to the left, making that appear like a unilateral aspect or a unilateral portion of the movement, which it is. But 75% of this movement is bilateral, meaning it is going to be using both sides equally. It is going to be in midline of your body until the very top of the movement. So keep that in mind as we go. So after I pick the bag, I have two options. If I'm comfortable enough doing this, I can bypass the lap portion of the movement altogether. This will allow me to keep momentum going from the pick off the ground, or I can choose to completely stop all momentum of the movement and put the sandbag in my lap completely. If you're a beginner, you're probably going to want to start with putting the bag completely in your lap. So I'm going to pick the sandbag and set it in my lap. Notice that when I put it in my lap, I really sit back. I drop my butt down to allow for my own body weight to act as a counterweight to the sandbag's weight. I say that you should be able to eat dinner in this position. This should not be a difficult position for you to be in. Again, because the weight of the sandbag and the weight of my own body are counteracting one another. Also, please notice that the sandbag is not tucked all the way into the crease of my hips. Rather, I have it sitting on the middle aspect to the distal or towards the knee aspect of my thighs. Now, after I've lapped the bag, if I were to try to just maintain that position and not change the relationship between the bag and my body at all, before I work to move the bag up and onto my shoulder, the sandbag is going to end somewhere around here, and I'm going to lose all mechanical advantage that I could have, and the bag will not make it to my shoulder, just like this. Look how low the sandbag ends up on my body. If I were to end with it there, it would be a miserable fight to try and get the bag from that low up to my shoulder. So instead, I need to reposition the bag. I need to change the relationship of the bag to my body. I need to set the bag higher on my body. So after I've lapped the bag, I'm going to create a little bit of space between the bag and myself, and I'm going to set the bag on top of what I call my bread basket, this shelf right here, beneath your chest, above your gut. So this shelf, that's where I want to set the bag on top of. Now, when I've taught people this movement in the past, a cue that I've given them is to put it in your throat. So put the bag as high as you can. You're not going to be able to. I'm not able to put the bag literally that high. But if your effort is to put it that high, it will end at this shelf. Look something like this. Now, once I've done that, once I've repositioned the bag, I need to glue it there. I need to make the bag a part of me so that when I move my body, then the bag has no option but to move with me. So once I have the bag where I want it to be, I need to use my arms and my back to row the bag into me as hard as I possibly can. This is going to glue the bag or attach the bag to my body at that spot. Now, if you recall, when we did not do this, after we lapped the bag, if we just tried to stand up, the sandbag ended very, very low, somewhere around here. Now that I've changed the relationship between the bag and my body, watch how high up the bag ends this time. So I've lapped the bag. I'm going to create some space, set it high, glue it to myself, and stand up. So when I reposition the bag and I punch with my hips, when I extend my hips really, really hard, it forces my upper body to erect, to stand upright. And when I've glued that bag to myself, you saw the bag had no option but to come with me. Now, when the bag ends that high, it really is just a very fluid, smooth translation from getting the bag in the front of you to your shoulder. it's pretty much at the height that it needs to be. You just have to move it from here to here. And this is where that little bit of a unilateral aspect of the movement comes into play, meaning one-sided. Now I stopped just then when I had it high, but you obviously don't want to stop there in the middle of the movement because it kills all momentum. So when you have that big punch, that big extension, explosion with your hips, and you get that bag high, you want to have one big final pop at the top with both your hips, your spine, and your arms pulling the bag up to give it a little bit of hang time, enough time to translate it with your arms over to one shoulder. So that final pop would look something like this. And lastly, guiding it to that shoulder. So in the midst of that one big final strong pop with your hips, back, and arms, you're going to use your hands and your arms to guide with pressure towards the shoulder that you're going to. And the side of the bag that corresponds with that shoulder is the one that will go to the back. Now, as I do this, as I guide with both arms from pulling it into my body to guiding it to one side, I'm eventually gonna let go of where my hands were, and I'm gonna move them to where they ultimately will catch the bag on my shoulder. And it's gonna look something like this. I'm going to pop it up, and when I let go, I'm gonna move my hands under. So this arm of the side of the shoulder that I'm going to is gonna roll underneath the bag. This hand is going to catch and provide support from the bottom. So I'm gonna roll, pop, and then move this arm under as this arm catches to support from the bottom, just like this. Once you're comfortable with the stability of the bag on your shoulder, you can drop one arm off to show control. Now, as you move up in weight with heavier bags, there's some nuance to it. Some things may change a small bit, but that basic outline is how I shoulder almost every bag. And it is the most efficient way that I have found to do so. Sandbags are an amazing tool. Sandbags are for everybody. Give them a shot, let it be tough.